Hey, everybody, this is Jimmy. Welcome to another episode of the Biblical Business Leaders Podcast. Today, I'm super excited to bring to you an interview episode where it's not just me, giving you all my thoughts on different things going on in my life, but it's actually another interview episode, which was the original intent of the podcast, was me to interview other people and get how they incorporate business and faith and family all together in the best way possible that honors and glorifies God in the best way possible. The last interview episode I did was with Jenny Hunt, which I believe is one of the most downloaded episodes to date. And it was an awesome interview. If you haven't listened to it, go and check it out. But this one today is with somebody who I actually met about probably a month ago through a Zoom call. And we were talking about Amazon business. And his name is Aaron Lipman. He doesn't just do Amazon. In fact, his main business is through real estate. He's got quite an awesome story. He started out in youth ministry and since then has, gone into more of a business aspect, but has been able to combine his faith and have his faith shine through his businesses and the other things that he does. So he's a huge proponent and kind of his ending advice, I'll leave that for you to hear from him, but it's actually the title of this episode, which is that we're all called to be missionaries. And I thought that was an extremely powerful statement. So I'm excited for you to hear that. Again, that's towards the end of the episode, but had an awesome time talking with Aaron. Super excited for you all to hear this. It blessed my life in a lot of ways. There's a lot of amazing tidbits throughout this episode that I think you should all hopefully take notes on, or at least take to heart and start to incorporate into your business and your faith and your family and how you combine everything together. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump in. But before we do that, actually, if you haven't joined the Facebook group for this podcast, go to Facebook and look up the groups, and it's called Biblical Business Leaders Podcast. And you can find that, or actually it's Biblical Business Leaders. Sorry, Biblical Business Leaders Podcast will probably bring up the same group, but it's actually called Biblical Business Leaders. And so if you go to that group, you can join, request to join. And once you're accepted into there, we can, you can join the conversation. So please bring any comments or posts into that Facebook group so that we can all fellowship together through this, talk about how it's affected our lives and how we can all learn and join together into glorifying God through our businesses and really everything that we do. So thank you so much. And now, without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into this episode with Aaron Lipman. Hey, Aaron, thank you so much for being on the Biblical Business Leaders Podcast. I really appreciate it. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be part of it today.
Yeah, super fun. So let's go ahead and start off with a prayer like I normally do, and then we'll get into talking to you about your businesses and your faith and how you combine the two. Okay?
Sounds good.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this opportunity today for Aaron and I to just jump on this call and discuss two very important topics, which are business and faith, and how we can combine those two things. Please help this to be a blessing to all the listeners out there. Help this to be a blessing to both me and Aaron as well, and for us to all get a lot out of this fellowship and a lot out of the insights that Aaron can bring to the listeners. Thank you so much for everything you've given us, and in Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Awesome, Aaron. Well, excited to have you on. I know that we originally got introduced through Amazon circles. We had a call a few weeks ago, and you were telling me about some other businesses and things that you're involved in, and really how you incorporate your faith into those businesses. And so I'm excited to go ahead and discuss that. So for anybody that doesn't know you, would you mind just giving us a background on kind of the businesses that you're involved in and what you're currently doing from a career perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So my full-time business is real estate. So I have a real estate business that I do. I live in the Dallas area, so just north of Dallas, and which is home for me. And so got into real estate about 5 years ago. I actually transitioned from vocational ministry, from being a youth pastor, into the business world. And so kind of over time landed in real estate, which has turned out to be a good fit for me. So that's where most of my energy goes these days as far as work. And I do some other things, do some Amazon stuff, which has been newer, but fun and exciting, and definitely see lots of potential there with that. And then do some tennis has been a big part of my life. So as a college tennis player, then became a teaching pro. So
Wow.
For fun, I coach some tennis lessons on the side to kind of stay active in the sport.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you say you're in real estate, are you a real estate agent, or do you do investing, like flipping houses? What exactly in real estate?
Yeah, I'm an agent.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you're under a broker, or do you have your own firm?
Yeah, I'm under brokerage. So,
Okay.
I got my start in 2015
Okay.
under one of the big name brokerages, and that was great. Enjoyed it. Got lots of good training. Helped me get off on the right foot. Over time, once I kind of had a foundation built, I got connected to the brokerage I'm currently part of. We're a small local brokerage called the Real Estate Project,
Okay.
and part of the draw to that for me was the mission behind our brokerage. We're a little different in kind of what we do and the purpose of why we do real estate.
Yeah. So I guess tell us a little bit about that mission. What is it that drew you, I guess, then to that brokerage?
Yeah, so our broker actually started it in 2012 with the idea of, hey, how can I use real estate for the good of our community? So, obviously we use it to make a living for ourselves,
Yeah.
but it's a very local thing, right? And
Yeah.
so we live here, work here, raise families here, play here. So what does it look like to actually use what we do to invest back in the community? So all that to say, as a brokerage, we give a percentage of every commission we make to local nonprofit or charity, and we let our clients choose where that goes to.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a way to take what we do, and we actually, out of our own personal commission, donate a certain percentage. It's up to each agent what that
Okay.
looks like, how much, and all of that. And then we also want to engage people in giving. So we allow our clients to say, hey, here's where I'd like that to go.
Wow.
If they have something they're involved in already or passionate about, it can go there. If not, we have ideas of other places that can go to.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess how many agents are there and a part of this?
Yeah, there's 10 or 11 of us
Okay.
at the moment.
Do you
So
know how much has been donated from those commissions at all? Do you have a rough number?
yeah, I believe we're close to surpassing $500,000
Wow.
donated since 2012.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah. So I guess obviously that helps from a business perspective as well, too, right? So you're taking care of your community, and it helps from a business perspective because it's really good marketing, really. I mean, it's allowing people to experience your brand, right? The brand of the brokerage, wanting to be a part of the community. And it's also getting people to buy into your brokerage. Has that been a huge help in the company growing?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me personally, real estate's unique in that, every realtor has to be sponsored underneath the brokerage,
Hmm.
but you're really self-employed. We're our own business owners. And so in that sense, it's allowed, my clients have gotten behind that. My client base is all my business is through relationships and referrals. And so
Yeah.
that story gets told of what we do and why we do it, and so then that helps business move forward. But then in moving forward, it also helps us to continue to do more for the community as well. So it's kind of a
Yeah.
win-win, I guess.
That's so cool. That's awesome. Well, I guess I did want to jump on one thing too. You had said earlier you started in youth ministry. So what made you kind of decide to go from youth ministry into business specifically? And then do you see similarities between the two in what you were doing before and what you're doing now?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, my background is youth ministry. Kind of jack of all trades, master of none. Mainly did youth ministry, did some other roles
Okay.
on church staffs over time. So I went to college, studied for youth ministry, graduated a long time ago. And me and other guys started a church in the Denver area. And my role was youth and kids. And then over time, transitioned to another church in the area as a youth pastor, and then ended up coming back home to be the youth pastor at the church I grew up in. So all that spanned about 12, 13, 14 years, somewhere in there.
Okay.
I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was a good fit for me. Felt like it was a calling. And over time, as my wife and I started having kids, doing youth ministry became more of a challenge.
Okay.
It requires a lot of going to sporting events or band concerts, choir, all these things that are outside of normal working hours. And so, when we started having kids, it just, sometimes those job requirements took me away from that. And the church I was on staff at, and I just kind of felt like my passion for youth ministry wasn't what it was. And the teams I was serving probably needed someone who was more passionate about it than I was at that point. The church I was working for didn't have another role at that point that I could transition into. And so, we had two young girls at the time, and I didn't want to uproot my family to take another ministry job somewhere else, away from, extended family in the area as well. And so, got involved in a nonprofit, which was great. And then over time, kind of started getting into the business world a bit. And that's kind of stuck, and I've enjoyed it. It's been a fun journey, a hard journey, but a fun one. But I would say there's a lot of similarities, especially in real estate. You're really, in ministry, you're walking alongside people, kind of helping them through life, helping them on their journey of faith, things like that. In real estate, you're walking alongside people through what's often the biggest financial decision they're going to make at that point in their lives, or up to that point in their lives. And so there's a lot of pastoring that goes into that. Not that that's, the word that we use, but that's kind of really what it is. You're really helping people in that season, in that time, and you're pretty deeply involved in their lives at that point. And so, it's still a lot of those skills of working with people and caring for people and trying to do what's best for someone translate between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, how long have you been doing real estate? You said 2015?
Yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been out of the ministry?
So out of vocational ministry since 2014.
2014. Okay. So right after pretty much you got into real estate for the most part. So I guess, how have you kind of incorporated, your faith into your business activities and your, dealings with clients, et cetera? Have there been any specific things that you've done to make sure that you incorporated that, besides, obviously the giving from the commissions that you make? Besides that, is there anything else that you've done to incorporate your faith into your business activities?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously I want to really care for people, take care of them, look out for them, make sure that they're not getting into a situation that's going to set them or their family back financially.
Right.
So just really serving them and taking care of their best interests. So being a servant, putting them first. I say I got out of vocational ministry because I really think all of life is ministry. When you're following Jesus, he doesn't just say, hey, just give me this part of your life. He's like, all of your life is for my service. And so, I think when you start to look at things more holistically like that, then it, I still view what I do as ministry in a lot of ways, because I get to serve and care for people. Which, I think to simplify things is Jesus calls us to do, right? And so, I I don't know if that makes sense or kind of answers the question, but.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, leading by example is the perfect way to put it. I mean, I think it's very easy for Christians, to be really out in front with their faith, and it can scare people when sometimes the best way to, show your faith is by leading by example and doing the things that we should be doing. And even, and I refer back to this regularly in this podcast, but I know on the podcast I did with Jim Cockrum, he talks about the Hebrew word avodah, which means work, service, and worship. It means the same thing. And so whenever you're working, especially working with the mindset of working for the Lord, then you're also serving and worshiping God at the same time. So I think that's a really powerful thing to remember for all of us, looking at our businesses, looking at, even if you're an employee, whatever it might be, in the fact that if we dedicate our time to our work and we do it as if we're working for the Lord, we really are worshiping and serving the Lord in that regard. And so, I think that's definitely a powerful thing to say, is that the best way to do it is to lead by example, just like you said. I guess...
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go for it.
I was just saying, I think you hit it on the head. It's one thing I think about a lot, and it's, every day before I sit down, or first thing when I sit down, I just try to surrender my work to the Lord and say, okay, God, this business is yours. It's not mine. You've just entrusted it to me. Right. And so my job is to just steward what you've given me. And hopefully I can be responsible with that, and hopefully as I am, then there's more to steward. My prayer is that my work is hopefully worship to the Lord, just like you said, because I think there's, it's easy to compartmentalize what we do a lot of times. Right. And so people go, well, I have work and I have home and I have my hobbies and then I have church. Right. And it's easy to separate those and compartmentalize them. But in reality, that's just not how faith works, and not how the Lord works. Like he wants to be Lord of all of our life. And so when we make that just that simple mindset shift of kind of like, it's easy to go, here's the secular things in my life and here's the sacred things in my life. But really, God created everything, and everything is sacred. And so when we view it like that, I think it really dramatically changes how we view our work and what we do and how it can be worship. Yeah. We were created to work. I used to have someone, say all the time when I was on a church staff, like, work wasn't part of the curse of the fall. It was the burden of work. And so we're created to do stuff and to work hard and to do good things. And when we realize all of that falls underneath what the Lord wants us to do, then it dramatically changes how we view work and our coworkers and our clients and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you just said, and I've actually never heard it put that way. That after the fall, it was the burden of work. That was the curse, not work, because Adam was working the garden before the fall, right? And it was after it that it would be, harder, more toil-like labor. And so, I've never thought about that before, so that's pretty cool. Now, I know that you made some pretty big transitions, right? So from ministry to business, were there any difficult times that you had to get through with that? That's a major transition. How, I guess, did you get through that transition from working in youth ministry to working in business?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of prayer.
Right. Okay.
When you start in real estate, there's always some lead time to when you get paid. Right. So you only get paid when you close on a home, and that doesn't just happen in a day or two. Right. And so there's a process involved. So, I was very fortunate to have some good people in my life who kind of in real estate, who took me under their wing, helped me get started. And, there's kind of an expectation when you start. It's like, don't expect to get paid anything for the first 6 to 12 months.
Oh, wow.
And,
Okay.
You just don't know. Like, so my wife and I, before I got started, we sat down and we just looked at our finances and our savings and went, okay, how long can we make it without a paycheck from real estate? And we went, we can make it 9 months.
Okay.
And
Wow.
so I have 9 months to close one deal. Because I went, if I can close one deal, I can close two, right? And then so on and so forth. And so I just kind of, put my head down and worked as hard as I could and said, we didn't have a plan B. And so for me, that was plan A and nothing else at that point. And, that looking back, I'm just so thankful the Lord provided way more than we could have ever expected. So my first closing was about 10 weeks after I started. And then I had another one a couple weeks later. And, by the time 9 months rolled around, I had hit my cap for the year at the brokerage I was with. So there's a certain number sales volume that once you hit that number, then you keep 100% of your commission. And by 9 months, I had hit that number. And if you would have asked me when I started if that would have happened, I would have told you absolutely no way. But it was kind of one of those things that, I was doing another kind of business sales thing before, and it just wasn't a fit. And so we were just praying, okay, Lord, what's next? What do you want us to do? This is really uncertain and scary. And I asked 4 or 5 people who knew me really well and who I really trusted, and went, hey, what could you know my story and my background. What could you see me doing in the business world? And independently, people would go, have you thought about real estate? And I go,
that's awesome.
Did you talk to so-and-so? They're like, what are you talking about? And so I was like, okay, God, maybe you're trying to tell me something. And then I had 3 different people I talked to go, hey, I have a friend who used to be a pastor who's a realtor. Here's their number. You should talk to them. And I'm like, okay, God, this can't be getting more obvious. And so I called all these people up, said, hey, so-and-so gave me your number. Can we have lunch? And they all sat down with me. We had lunch or coffee, and all of them were like, you should do this. And so, those were some really neat confirmations for us getting into it. Yeah. And looking back, that I'm thankful for that, because without that, so I guess all that to say, I really felt like the Lord kind of led me into that career path at that time. Yeah. And then, with the benefit of hindsight, it's easy to see how he did and how he provided, even when we had no idea what was going to happen.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really cool. And I think there's a couple important principles. One, business wise, not just faith, but business wise. You said that you had to focus on that first sale, right? Instead of focusing on, if I make 10 sales in the next 9 months, right? You had to focus on the first one. And I think, at least from my perspective in our businesses that we have, I a lot of times will struggle with, what's the end goal? Like, where do I want to be? This is where I want to go. And forget sometimes that it needs to be, okay, well, what are the steps each day that I need to take to hit, the first level of that goal? And so I think that's a really important thing, just from a business standpoint, for people to take out of this podcast. And then from a faith perspective, I did a podcast, I think it was 2 podcasts ago, on prayer and the power of prayer. And I think that that's really important too, that you took the time during that transition to pray about, well, where does God, God, where do you want to lead me? And then you did start taking those action steps to ask other people and figure out where God wanted to put you, instead of just being like, well, I'm going to jump into this because it feels, somebody else is making a bunch of money on it, So I think those are 2 powerful things that you said that hopefully people can take from this podcast and apply to their own life. I know too that you just got done with a golf like charity event, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And so I guess tell us a little bit about that and how that came to be, and I guess some more info about that.
Yeah. No, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
So kind of backstory. My dad passed away in 2008.
Okay. Wow.
And the church we're part of, my dad was a big part of that, was a leader in the church. People joked that he was like the mayor of the church. Like, everyone knew him, everyone loved him, he loved everybody.
Yeah.
Kind of just one of those guys who just really cared for people, and everyone just loved and adored. And my dad loved golf. He was a big golfer, and he used to put on a little golf tournament for like 20 guys in the church, and just to have fun, get guys connected. But also he was trying to raise $500 each year, because one of his passions was men's ministry. And our church had a local men's retreat.
It cut out for a second. How much did you say he was trying to raise?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, he was trying to raise about $500.
$500. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Because our church had a men's retreat and every fall, and it was $100 to go. And so, he wasn't always like the upfront person, but he felt like if he could get guys to that, then that maybe couldn't afford to go or who wouldn't go. If he could make a way for them to get there, then maybe something would spark some life change for them that weekend. So that was the heart behind it. So he passed away unexpectedly in 2008, and a couple guys kept that tournament going for a couple years, kind of doing that same thing. And then, I moved back to the area in 2010. And then in 2011, a group of us got together and said, hey, what would it look like to try to take this tournament, and maybe make it a little bit bigger. Yeah. And we went, well, if we're going to do that, maybe we need a bigger cause. And so we decided to adopt the cause of clean water. And our church, our denomination, has a partnership with an organization called World Hope International. Yeah. They're a great organization, do lots of incredible stuff around the world. And they build clean water wells around the world. So we said, well, let's reach out to World Hope and let's see if they'll partner with us. And let's find out how much a well cost. And at that point, a well was $5,500. So we went, well, if we can raise half a well, we'll feel good about that. So $2,750. And so we went out, planned this tournament, ended up having 40, 50 people come out, and $11,000 came in. Wow. Yeah. That's so awesome. 2 wells. Okay, God, we had no idea. And so the next year came around and we're like, well, should we try this again? And we're like, I guess so. And, the cost of a well jumped up to like $8,500. So we said, well, if we can get 2 wells again, we'll be like, that would be awesome. Yeah. Right. And I think enough came in for 3 wells that year. So like $25,000. That's incredible. And then the next year it was something similar, and it just kept growing to the point that World Hope has a donor who, he's anonymous to us, but he came to World Hope and said, he caught wind of the tournament and said, hey, I want you to go challenge this group to try to raise more. And he goes, I'll match dollar for dollar. That year it was up to like $25,000. So we're like, well, we gotta match that. Like, we gotta get, make the most of it. Right. Well, it jumped to $10,000 at that point. And so, each year that number, he would come back and say, hey, here's the number this year. And then it just kept growing and growing. And awesome. So we just did year 10 a few Saturdays ago. COVID had some different plans for us this year. It's originally supposed to be in May,
Yeah.
got pushed back to September, ended up being a blessing in disguise. And the goal this year was the match was $100,000. So
Oh, wow.
we said, we got to figure out how to raise $100,000. And just in the current climate, we weren't sure how people would be impacted financially and everything. And if that we'd be able to hit that goal or not. And so anyhow, going into year 10, we passed. When I say we, I mean the Lord has done it all. Like we're just lucky to be part of it. So we surpassed 100 wells over the 10 years. We're actually like 118, and surpassed $1 million raised since the start of the tournament.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's
awesome.
I think after all of the new wells are built, probably close to 100,000 people will have clean water.
Wow. That's amazing. So how do you've got a lot. Oh, okay. Sorry. It cut out again. I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi or what. Sorry.
It's probably me. Sorry.
You're fine. But you said, so 100,000 people will have clean water. Did you say in African villages?
Yes.
Okay. That's awesome. So you've got a lot of things going on, right? You've got 3 different things you do from a business standpoint, right? The tennis coach, your real estate, and then you do some Amazon. And then you've got the charity, the golf tournament, everything you've got going on. How do you manage all of that and still have time to spend with God and with your family and everything you've got going on?
Yeah, that's that's a challenge.
Right.
Whatever answer I give, I should give the disclaimer that I'm not always very good at it, and I have a lot of room to grow. So, the idea is setting boundaries, and just making sure that, and also too, so many things are seasonal. So like the golf tournament is seasonal. It's not like we're planning it year round. We start 4 or 5 months ahead of time. And that kind of gradually ramps up. Real estate, the beauty of that is that I set my own schedule. It's flexible, and so that I might work an evening and get home at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
But, a couple of weeks ago, we went to the zoo on a Friday morning because I just have the flexibility to do that. So there's trade-offs, and it's just making sure that, my family's getting a fair shake in that trade-off as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also tell my clients too that I'm like Chick-fil-A. I'm closed on Sunday.
Okay.
And whether my clients are believers or not, they all they get it and they love it, and it's great. Like I adopted that a couple years ago, because a lot of real estate actually happens on the weekends when people are free. But I felt like my family needed just a day that I wasn't running around. Right. And so, I started doing that, and it's like, it's probably helped my business. Good. And it hasn't hurt it.
That's awesome.
I tell people, call me, text me. Like if there's something we have to do, it's fine. It just means I'm not going to leave my family to go do something. And so, it's just setting those kind of boundaries, I think helps, and just kind of, doing your best to juggle it and manage it and take
Absolutely.
care of it.
Yeah, no, I struggle with trying to manage all that as well, especially, trying to take time off. I mean, it's easy from an entrepreneurial perspective to always be like, I have all these things to do, and I don't even have kids, right? So I have less to do than most people, and I still struggle with that. So it's definitely something that I personally have to work on as well, is how do I spend downtime, with God and Brittany. So yeah, it's pretty, it's a lot of things to manage, but the lucky part about being an entrepreneur is that you do get to, have full control over your time. So, Aaron, I really appreciate you being on here, taking time out of your day and out of your week to come on the podcast and talk about everything going on. There's been a ton of great tidbits and things that you've said that people can take away and actually apply directly. So thank you for that. Is there anything else that you'd want people to know, or any other little things that you think people should know about incorporating their faith into their business and vice versa, or anything you want to leave everybody with?
I've been pretty influenced by this idea that we're all called, as Christ followers, we're all called to be missionaries. And for some of us, that's maybe missionaries overseas in a foreign country. But that's not everyone. And some of us, I believe God has called us all to where we are. Yeah. And if God's called us to where we are, then we're called to live as missionaries where we're at. And, that's your neighborhood, your workplace, all of that, your community. And I think when you start to view faith through that lens, it has a dramatic impact on how you interact with the people where you're placed. If I go to church on Sunday and I go to work on Monday, but it's like my faith and my life encompasses all of that. And so Monday with my coworkers can be just as important as Sunday at church. Yeah. Now you need that time and fellowship and worship to help prepare you for the week ahead, I believe. But when you start to view yourself as called and sent to a place, then it changes how you interact with people. So I would just encourage people, all that to say, hey, when you go into work, like, there's people there who are created in the image of God, and maybe they just don't know it yet. And it's our job as believers to hopefully draw that out of them and to point them to Jesus by just loving them, caring for them, being there for them. And maybe it adds more purpose to someone's job just by simply changing how you view it. Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful. That's awesome. That'll probably be the title of this episode, being called to be missionaries. So I think that's super powerful. Thank you so much, Aaron, for being on here. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to have people listen to this and get a lot of awesome, tidbits out of it. And hopefully there'll be some discussion too in the Facebook group about it, and ways that it's impacted people's businesses and lives. So I'm excited to see where this goes. So thanks so much, Aaron. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm humbled to be on and be part of it. So thank you for the time.
Awesome. Thanks. You have a good one.